Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind podcast. On this week's show, we are going to preview the above 80 kilogram bracket that we have for CJI and the under 80 kilogram bracket that we have for the Craig Jones Invitational, the $1 million bracket tournament, as well as the super fights on CJI, and talk a little about ADCC as well, because we're going to be in Vegas for both. As always, I'm your host, Maine, my co-host,
Cory.
How you doing, Cory?
Excellent.
Good to have you on.
Thanks for having me, brother.
After years of you sending me hot takes and us talking about grappling, it's great to finally have you on. Right before we got to Vegas, we were going to preview last week. We were talking about previewing both ADCC and CJI, and then in true Grappling Rewind fashion, the recording ends, and like an hour and a half later, Miranda texts me and she goes, or the whole group chat for Grappling Rewind, she went, "Hey, they're doing bracket reveals tomorrow." When the show comes out. I was like, cool. So, we will preview that next week. We were talking about previewing ADCC this week. Realistically, we kind of did that. Zach and I did that a couple of months ago. Before we had a lot of people drop and jump ship to CJI, because we have a bracket this week for CJI, we thought it would be a much more interesting show to sort of talk about what we actually have for CJI, because it's happening this week. It's $1 million in the line for each, bracket. And we actually know who's going to go against each other. For ADCC, we previewed all the grapplers that were in it. A lot of the biggest names that were in the divisions at the time that Zach and I did the previews a couple months ago that you can still find in the Grappling Rewind YouTube page and the Grappling Rewind, whatever you listen to podcasts. You can find that show there. The biggest names that are still in those brackets are still probably your front runners. And so we can kind of guess at that and how those brackets are going to stack out. But realistically, for ADCC, we're going to get a bracket Friday, and until then, it would just sort of be us guessing. We thought it'd be much more interesting to just talk about what we actually know, matchups we actually know are going to happen here in a couple of days, versus just previewing ADCC like we'd kind of already done. So that's the reason we're not previewing ADCC. We are previewing an actual bracket that we have, which I get kind of much more amped to preview.
Very excited.
Very excited. So I don't think we have any other news. We talked about the last move over in ADCC, for CJI, with Mason Fowler being out. We talked about Fowler's injury. He's been replaced. He's not in these brackets. Luckily, we don't have to kind of redact of like, okay, who's replacing him? They did it in like a weird lottery system. You should definitely watch the broadcast that was on the B Team YouTube page for how they're going to run it. CJI is going to be free on YouTube. It is going to run Friday and Saturday. My wife and I and the whole Grappling Rewind team are flying out to Vegas here in a couple of days, and then to go to CJI and to go to ADCC. So hopefully we're going to do some live shows there. The live shows are always a ton of fun. Everyone always loves and hates doing them because it's been after a full 12 or 16 hours of watching grappling, and then we have to do an hour pre-show and get everything together for notes. And okay, there were 100 matches that happened today. Which ones do we want to recap and cover for how the divisions sit day one and day two? The day one and day two shows every 2 years are the hardest shows we have to do, but honestly, I think they're really, really cool pieces. And we're not talking about any of that today. This is all just CJI. So no news. Let's get right into it. Cory, what bracket do you want to start with this week? Do you want to do above 80 or under 80? Where do you want to start? We're going to do them both. But where do you want to start?
All I know is they're both for $1 million.
Yeah, dude.
That's a lot of money,
man.
I mean,
that's the most. We talked about Spider I remember when we talked about the first Spider Invitational a couple years ago, and it was for $100,000. There was two divisions, $100,000 each. I think the one that Levi Jones, Larry, and Mergali won.
Yes.
Back in 2019. And that was insane money, because back then, even in 2019, most tournaments were 10 grand. That was the highest level tournaments were 10 grand.
Right.
And then you'd occasionally have an EBI that would be a 25 grand or something like that. But that was only if you finished everyone in regulation. And Wagner kind of very famously won the whole tournament, didn't get any money because he beat everyone in overtime. So people that haven't really followed grappling for many, many years, like we have, $1 million tournament is unheard of to a level that is astonishing. Spider being for 100,000 is still a crazy value.
Very great purse.
Yeah, it's a life-changing purse for most of these guys in this sport. $1 million is unheard of. Plus, all these guys are getting $10,001 to show.
Just to show up.
So it's phenomenal. Let's start on the. I'm dyslexic, of course. So let's start on the left-hand side of the bracket.
Yes, sir.
Ty Rotolo and Jason Nilf. So Ty Rotolo, third place, ADCC Absolute. medalist, been the 1FC champion. I always call it 1FC. I'm gonna try to get better. One championship, middleweight title.
Middleweight.
I think it's middleweight for a year now. And he just went against Joseph Chen, had a really great match, very, very close match that kind of could have gone either way, but he's retained that title. He's going against Jason Nolf, who is a very credentialed wrestler. Full disclosure here, I don't watch as much wrestling as I should. Miranda is sort of the one that watches the most wrestling of anyone on the team, and maybe Josh nowadays too. Jason Nolf, by the kind of the fact that in my eyes he has legs and is primarily a wrestler, Ty Rotolo is probably going to get his feet. We've seen this happen many, and I don't want to diminish the accomplishment of Jason Nolf here.
Right.
Phenomenal wrestler, but we've seen this over the course of wrestlers entering into submission grappling tournaments. Typically, if they enter immediately into the highest levels, it doesn't go great. We've seen it with Pat Downey, versus Gordon. We've seen it with Torres versus not Torres. The little guy that went against Nicky Ryan at Who's Number One that he heel hooked in 16 seconds.
I'm drawing a blank as well.
He's got an acronym name. Really, really good wrestler, but we've seen this that when I was at live for Bo Nickel versus Gordon Ryan, there were no leg locks and Gordon was still able to triangle him. It's even if you kind of modify the rule set to allow the wrestler to have an option, if there are subs on the table, unless the wrestler can only just pressure down and stalemate for guys that are coming out of a traditional wrestling background and not coming out of I've done jiu-jitsu for a couple of years. Pat Downey is kind of a different guy now because he's in Bellator, he fights MMA, he's been in and out of wrestling and been doing some submission grappling for a couple of years. He's not quite the same as a guy like Nolf or a guy like Greg Kverktet, who's in plus 80, that are just coming from wrestling with a little bit of submission grappling, we've seen them either with belts on or occasionally doing some jiu-jitsu.
Right.
Super high level. He has feet. He has a neck. Two things that Ty Rotolo is the best and was a world champion in getting.
Leg pin, Dars, feet, neck.
Yeah. So I think Ty Rotolo is going to submit Jason Nolf kind of easily, unless, because we know that Ty Rotolo is going into MMA, unless he actually wants to get some work on his feet. Unless Ty decides to try to keep it standing and Jason Nolf takes him down.
Right.
And then you're on the bottom of Jason Nolf, which is uncomfortable, but I'm not really something I'm super concerned about long-term for Ty. I think he submits Jason Nolf. Cory, what do you think here? Do you think it's Dars? Do you think it's heel? Do you think Nolf can take this?
Well, I think we've seen that Ty's pretty good on his feet. He can hang. He can hang on his feet. I haven't seen much of Nolf
versus jiu-jitsu guys.
Versus jiu-jitsu guys, correct. Versus a high-level wrestler, it could be a little different. Maybe strategy will be to take him down, or to let him take him down.
Which we've seen Gordon done that before when his match with Pat Downey, kind of let down and take him down. Even with his match with Bo Nickel, we saw Bo Nickel took him down. That was kind of the strategy: get it to the ground and then do what you want to do there.
I just think with Ty's experience, I think, and maybe there's a bit of a gap there in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to give it to Ty because.
What do you think he subs him with? What do you think he subs him with? Put you on the spot here.
Dars, maybe.
You think a Dars?
Maybe a Dars. Yes,
I think it's either going to be Dars or heel hook. One of those two.
I mean, I'm thinking with Jason Nolf being a wrestler, I guess that front pressure, that being a wrestler, you're moving forward constantly.
The head's going to be in the chest.
The head's going to be down, and could be a guillotine, could be a Dars. But I think with his neck being out there, I think is.
Yeah, I was going to leg lock, but I do kind of think that just with how we saw literally Rotolo, him and his brother finish arm in rear naked choke. It was a head and arm a Dars from the back.
Yeah, that's
both
sick.
of them defend their titles at one championship. Yeah, correct. I think Ty takes this via Dars.
I do too.
I think it's pretty definitive.
I think it may take a moment to get there because of, I guess, Jason Nolf's energy may just be that high.
He's a human.
He might come in hot. Plus, it's $1 million, so everyone's going to be throwing everything in the kitchen sink at everybody else.
Yeah, for $1 million. So yeah, I think Ty takes this. Next one, we get anything else on that matchup?
No, that's it.
Next matchup, we have a really interesting one. Roberto Jimenez versus Levi Jones-Leary. We've seen Levi Jones-Leary a ton recently on like Polaris, and we've really, with him prepping for ADCC and then making the jump over to CJI, we really saw him like working on his wrestling. I think one of the driving things that he talked about in him going to CJI was like, yeah, I don't have to wrestle. Like, I don't have to do it. And so if there's $1 million on the line, I've already won Spider, which is $100,000, like one of the biggest tournament prizes ever. I don't have to wrestle, like this rule set favors me better. Levi Jones-Leary is the best Berimbolo player in the world. I think pretty definitively. Do you think, and is there anyone else that comes to mind as a better Berimbolo player? There are other guys that can do it well. Like Mikey's got a good Berimbolo, but I think pound for pound, Levi Jones-Leary, it is the only thing he's willing to do. He is going to play a Berimbolo game. We've seen him pass a little bit more in Nogi, but I think with Roberto Jimenez, I think Jimenez is going to be willing to play from top, and I think that Jimenez is going to be a little bit faster versus Leary. Not faster as like Jimenez is going to be bigger because we know. I mean, it's under 80. So, but I think Jimenez. We saw him at Nogi Worlds at like 200 plus for that, and this is about 170, right?
Right. Yeah, it's about 170.
Yeah, about 170.
I think with Roberto being a back hunter, I think he's going to be searching for the back. We know he's susceptible, to the leg locks game, what have you, but I don't really know if Levi is going to come at him with.
He's been with Lachlan. That's my. We know Levi has good leg locks, and we've seen him again Polaris like defend him, but we've also watched Roberto get better at his leg lock defense. Not like
very true,
unquestionably like that. It's not still potentially a problem there. It seems to be a little less of a problem than it was before, but this is the battle of like who wants to take the back out. Roberto, if he gets into the guard, if Levi puts him on his butt, which I think he can do with the Bolo game, and like Jimenez can belly back and get to his butt, get in his guard. If Roberto can get the body lock here from under, he can potentially get Levi Jones-Leary's back. If Levi Jones-Leary can get his Bolo game going, I think he can absolutely settle on Roberto Jimenez's back and get it. So it's a weird kind of matchup. Unfortunately, I kind of think that whoever wins it runs into Tyrotolo.
Yes.
And then it's like, good luck, baby. You got Tyrotolo.
I mean, I've seen Levi in some of his matches go, search for the back, go to crab ride, then go to the back.
Yeah.
So I think they're both going to be searching for the back. I'm not sure.
Who do you think gets it? Given this topic, again, we have two guys that play a really similar game.
I would say Roberto, seemingly, I guess in my opinion, I think he's done more no-gi recently than Levi has,
yeah.
I think.
I kind of think that's the defining factor as well. Is like Roberto, we just see him in more no-gi more frequently. We saw him in trials. We've seen him in ADCC. Like he's kind of been in the no-gi hopper longer than Levi has, and I think just being more comfortable, being more willing and comfortable to scramble without the cloth, that Levi really still you can tell in Levi's game, he still kind of wants it. He's super impressive without it, like more impressive than I even thought he would be. But yeah, I kind of lean Roberto for the same reason, just the familiarity in no-gi and the scrambles. And I don't think Levi's really going to hunt the feet, which has historically been one of Jimenez's biggest problems. If he's not going to do that, then you're going to firefight with Roberto Jimenez in an area that he's comfortable with. I think this could go either one of these guys getting rear naked choke win on the other wouldn't surprise me at all. But that's what both those guys kind of do, get the back and choke.
I agree with you.
But I do think that Jimenez, just in the rule set, as probably more of the top player here for longer, and as the more active fighter, it's probably going to be score. If it does go to decision, it's going to score for Jimenez more likely than not. And I think if there's multiple rounds here, it gives Jimenez more opportunities for scramble. Levi's going to start working his game in the Bolo. But I think that unless he's able to get Jimenez with it, Jimenez has a more stylistically friendly game for winning this judging matchup than Levi Jones-Leary does, who's probably going to want to take the bottom with Jimenez passing a range. Now, the weird big X factor for both these guys is I think this is going to be in the corner. This is going to be up on that pit wall.
You're probably right, yes.
And I think that's the biggest thing to figure out of like...
Who's been training with the walls.
And also, like, how does that affect the Bolo game of Levi Jones-Leary? How does that affect... I don't think that affects the double under back take game of Jimenez really at all, because he tends to do it in open space. He shucks beside you, which I think he can still do with walls on most directions. Levi Jones-Leary, with the angle change of the wall, I don't know if his bolo game will be nearly as effective. That's my big kind of X factor with Jones-Leary's game.
And I wonder if Roberto plays into that with the strategy. To try to kind of,
Roberto's not a huge strategy guy. That's my other kind of like X factor with Menez is like he's really just like a guns blazing, like huge high sub rate. He puts guys away. Levi Jones-Leary is much more tactically minded, but Jimenez is just a big gun that will just blast through most of his opposition.
It's going to be interesting what that wall does to people because I think there will be some strategy that will change because of the wall.
Yeah. So are we both going Jimenez?
I go Roberto.
All right, we both go Jimenez, so we'll talk about more of that. We got Jimenez and Ty in that first block there, underside of the bracket there on the left-hand side. Really interesting matchup. We got Lucas the Hulk Barbosa versus Kenta Iwamoto. This one for me is really interesting because we haven't seen Hulk a ton in jiu-jitsu recently. We've seen him in MMA. He's been in PFL. Like we've seen it. And Kenta is just doing jiu-jitsu. He's wrestling. He's doing jiu-jitsu. He was prepping for ADCC. He's a 3-time trials winner for ADCC at 66 and then twice at 77. Had a great match with JT Torres in 2024. Almost beat JT Torres at ADCC in the first round.
Correct. Lost by decision.
Lost by decision, which is which is crazy. And JT was the 2-time returning champion in 2022. It kind of speaks to just the dynamism of Kenta. Now, a lot of people were kind of going, can Lucas make 80? Like, he does make it for MMA, but it is a pretty heavy cut for him to get down here. Kenta has competed as low as 66, recently 77. And I think that's still a cut, but Hulk is going to be the bigger guy here. And Hulk is, I think, going to know how to impose because that's kind of the game that Hulk plays, big, strong. He's the Hulk. Like, that is what he does. Go back and watch his ADCC matches. Go back and watch his matches with Gordon. Go back and watch, like, he knows how to use his body and use, even if when he's not that big, be a Hulk.
Right.
And I'm curious if Kenta kind of coming up, he'll be one of the smaller guys in the under 80 kilogram division. I'm curious if he will be able to get around because I think he's faster. I think he's faster than Hulk, not by a huge margin.
I've given that. Yeah, I think he's a little faster than Hulk.
Yeah. In the pit, though, I don't know how much that speed is going to matter because Barbosa does like to play the edge a little bit, like a little traditional, old school kind of Brazilian way of like playing the edge, playing the boundaries, he knows how to win. He knows how to win world titles. He knows what it takes to game the rules in a way that favor him and favor his style. I'm curious if he's the bigger guy, if Kenta will be able to like out wrestle him, get his back. Like watching Kenta be able to flash him, get Barbosa's back and finish again wouldn't really surprise you. It'd be kind of the biggest win of Kenta's career. But I kind of do think Hulk, even though we haven't seen him a ton in jiu-jitsu, that little bit of extra size just will kind of matter a little more. And I think that Hulk will be able to slow Kenta down, pull him into a slower game, and be able to just impose on top. I don't know if Hulk's going to submit him, but I do think this is going to be, he's going to be able to slow Kenta down and put him in a place that kind of limits a lot of the dynamism that Kenta has in the wrestling and on the feet.
I don't know, man. I'm thinking Kenta for this one.
Really?
Simply because I think judo.
You think
black
that judo's
belt,
going to be a difference?
I think it's going to be potentially a big difference, especially on the feet. So that's, for me, is going to be the telltale sign. If they both stay on their feet, how judo plays into this.
Really?
I just think it's a game changer. I think it's different. It just adds a little bit more intrigue to it.
He's going to have a little more on the feet for Barbosa then, because
I think so.
It's one of the things we've been really impressed with, because Kento, I think, won trials in 2022, and he has a quote in his post-fight interview, full interviews, where someone interviews him, and he goes, his English is pretty good at the point, but he goes, I like to wrestle. And he just murdered everyone in that whole tournament with wrestling. But yeah, you looked him up.
I think he beat Joseph in the trials, correct?
That year, I think, yeah. You looked him up and you're like, I forget, he does have a pretty substantial judo background. And we see him doing a lot of no-gi judo nowadays as well, incorporated with the wrestling. And I think kind of with the wall and kind of is going to make guys stand up a little straighter, potentially it is a factor. I'm still going Hulk, but I like your Kenta pick because
it can go either way.
Now it throws a wrench into the rest of the bracketing here, which I think is good. So I love
Hulk is Hulk. I mean,
I love when we disagree though, because it makes it more fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything else on that one?
No, it can go either way. It really can. It just depends.
Speaking of Chen, Next match, we have Andy Varela and Joseph Chen. We just saw these guys at main character.
Hot like fire.
4 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks, month and a half ago, maybe? Something like,
That sounds about right.
wasn't too long ago. Really, really close match, went overtime. Chen took it in overtime versus Varela. I'm really hot on Joseph Chen in his game. Like, we just saw him versus Ty Rotolo in one championship, almost beat Ty Rotolo, something that no one's been able to come close to doing in one FC.
Correct.
Ty had that weird match with the Ritter that I was at in Denver, but it was like, not a lot happened in the match. The Chen match, a lot of stuff happened in. We've been, again, I've liked Varela's game a lot. He's super aggressive. He will make it a little dirty and make the ref kind of like pull him in. But Chen, the level and the rate at which Chen is improving, making me really hesitant to bet against Chen. Go back and look at his ADCC trials, his European trials win. Go back and look at his match with Tommy Langaker and Oliver Taza, two absolute veterans, and looked very good against them. And then his match with Ty looked even better. His first match with Andy Varela looked really good in that match. Like, nothing about Chen's game and his development, his progression makes me want to pick against Chen. And that really takes nothing away from Andy Varela.
Sure.
But it's just like the rate at which he is improving, and he's at B team, like the guys that are essentially putting on this tournament. You're in that room, you're
every
with
day.
Dima every day. They have the pit wall. We know they have the pit wall. The little X factor is Varela is in Vegas. So Varela is in his hometown. He is ready for the altitude. He's going to be comfortable there in a way that a lot of these guys aren't. Like, a lot of these guys aren't in Vegas yet.
Right.
That is my big X factor with Varela, is like, he's already in Vegas. He's comfortable in Vegas. He's there. Whereas Chen, everyone's is gonna have to come in and deal with that Vegas altitude competing, which does make a difference, and guys kind of forget about that. I'm going Chen mainly for I think his wrestling is good enough to deal with Varela. I think Varela's probably a little bit of a better wrestler. He's a little bit more imposing.
Definitely more physical. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely more. That's one way to put it. Do you think that Chen's going to pull here and play off his back and force Varela to pass?
Yes. I think so. I think I don't think Chen is going to try to out physical him. I think he's probably going to play more into more of a
kind of the game we saw him play versus Ty.
Yeah, kind of pull him into
the
his
guard,
game
the ornate guard game, and circle his feet around and really force Varela to start to jumping pass and have to overcommit. My only concern is in this rule set now, if Varela is the active passer, if Chen's on the bottom, I think Varela will take that in the rule set. That's my only concern for a decision, is the activity as the top player for Varela. How much? But I think with Chen being in the
Chen is so comfortable playing off his back, though.
But he's also been in the B team room and he knows the rule set. I don't think this is my kind of thought with your coaching, Dima, his coach at B team. I don't think Dima will let him make tactically bad decisions in the CJI rule set. I think now that they've had a week to prepare for Varela, I think these guys' games are going to wildly change in prep, because I'm really dude, Dima has something different. He is prepped. I've watched him prep a lot of guys. I've watched him speak to guys. I've been behind him at tournaments and seen what he can do and how guys talk about his coaching. Man, I'm really, really impressed with. I think they're going to come in with a game plan that's going to be ready for what Varela brings, especially with this being a rematch. But seeing Andy take this as a decision as a top player, as an active top player, wouldn't really surprise me. Yeah. I do think Chen's going to win. Because I think they'll come in with the team will come up with a really good game plan, and he will be able to be active enough. I don't think he subs Varela.
I don't think so either. No,
yeah. It would really shock me to see him sub Varela. I do think he will be able to get Varela down and be able to get on top of Varela, but I don't think we're going to see him get subbed. But I do think we'll see Chen, at one point, Varela will overcommit. Chen will capitalize on that, get on top, and start imposing for at least one of the rounds. Right. That will be very definitive. So we're both going Chen on this?
Chen.
Okay. So let's go to the other side of the bracket. We got Cade Rotolo and Mateus Diniz. What a wild, uneven first round this is. You have the former 88 kilogram champion for ADCC, 2019 champion, and then you have the under 77 kilogram champion in Cade Rotolo, 1FC champion, brother to Ty Rotolo. Basically on paper nowadays, I say that. I was going to say the better of the Rotolos, but not really. Ty has a world championship in IBJJF and a third place medal. Cade has the one title and the ADCC medal, so it's like very comparable grapplers. But I kind of want to pick Cade here over Mateus Diniz, which sounds we talked about this on the pre-show a little bit. It does sound crazy, but right? I just don't want to bet against either Rotolo brother. Like, I don't think the size will matter versus Diniz. I don't think Diniz is going to come in that big. Diniz also looks like he's on weight because Diniz has been posting pictures of himself, and he's at 80 kilograms now, and he looks sucked out now,
right?
And looks like uncomfortable, and we had guys that texted us the pictures like that looks like he's at weight, which is crazy because he's a big dude. And guys that have like trained with him in New York,
sure,
from the team that have come up, have been like, yeah, he shouldn't be that small. Like, he's a big, Mateus Diniz is a big fucking dude. Like, when I watched him win in 2019, because I was media then, I did a bunch of mat side stuff. Like, he's enormous. He's a big, I'm a small guy, but he's enormous. Cade is bigger than me, but not like, he's not like thick. He's like a little stocky, but he's wiry. I describe Cade more as wiry, Mateus as thick. So I think there will be a substantial size difference here because I don't think Cade is really going to have to cut that much to make under 80. I think we know Mateus having to cut a bunch to make the weight here. How do you see this going? Where do you see, like, with Cade's game versus Mateus's game? We know Mateus plays a really heavy, grindy, slower game. Doesn't tend to take a lot of risk, but doesn't tend to be very dominant in his positioning, whereas Cade is the exact opposite of that.
180 degrees, the opposite. Very dynamic, very unpredictable, almost like a carbon copy of his brother.
They're twins. That makes sense. Right? That tracks.
Yeah, I just think, both of them are very, very, very good. I think Cade is just so dynamic. I think that once you throw that in there with the wall and the unpredictableness of this thing and just the $1 million payday, I think you're going to see everyone give their best. But I think this where Cade kind of taking it to that level, I think, we've seen him punch up.
You think the activity,
ADCC,
the activity is going to win him this, even if it goes to decision? Because I think Mateus is super hard to put away. I mean,
Cade has a crazy gas tank. I mean, look who his brother is. That they fight in the garage, and obviously, Ty's been historically the bigger brother, but I think Cade now is actually growing into his body now. I think he's actually getting bigger. So
they've talked about it as like they're actually the same size. They keep talking about it. He goes, Cade, because they were gonna switch divisions for ADCC.
Okay.
Cade was gonna go to 88 and Ty was gonna go to 77. Because they were talking about it, we're actually the same size, but Ty has historically gone up to the heavier guys. Yes. I've historically gone to the lower guys. And they were talking about swapping. I think, like, you kind of hit it. The activity. If we go to decision here, Cade's gonna be the more active guy. Mateus is notoriously not a super active guy in this rule set that favors Cade. Yeah. I also think you mentioned it as well, the pit wall. Like, if there is any dude, there are three dudes, we'll talk about it here actually in a second. Renato Canuto, Cade Rotolo, and Andrew Tackett. All guys on this side of the bracket, by the way. This is the young guns side of the bracket here. Also we have, like, Varela, and we got Chan on the other side of the bracket, and Jimenez. Like, actually, this is a young man's sport now.
Yes, it is. Very much so.
I think the activity of Cade, I'm not going to say alone, but that will be the biggest factor here, and his ability to use the wall. I think we're going to see Cade. We've seen him win one championship, jump off the wall and try to hit triangles on Mateus Gabriel. Like,
yes, right. Yes.
I think we're going to see the same thing versus Mateus Diniz.
I think so too.
I think we're going to at some point have Diniz on top of Cade, but I think we'll see Cade be willing to just get up. Now that he's fighting MMA, like, we know that get up's going to be there, and I think that he's just going to be unwilling to have Mateus Diniz on top of him, pressuring him down, and we'll see him be able to get up off the cage wall or off the pit wall here, scramble and get up. I think he's just going to be able to throw up more offense. I don't think he puts away Diniz, but I think we see 3 rounds of just a ludicrous pace out of Cade Rotolo where he's just doing more. He's just doing more versus Diniz, and he takes a decision.
Because I think with the training that probably most of these athletes are doing, they're all going to be ready to go 3 rounds. I mean, it's $1 million on the line too. They're all going to go all out. So, but I think Cade will try to take him in deep water, and that
that
like the
late
Energon-
gas tank he has.
Energizer's a battery, man. I mean, he has a crazy gas tank, just like his brother. And just like a
they're
couple
not.
other guys.
I think
we're gonna
Deniz
talk about
will
later,
be will have to slow down a little bit in the later rounds, but I don't think Cade will have to. If anything, honestly, he will become quicker. Like, he will be willing to even throw more of his gas tank at the problem in front of him if it's not going away. So yeah, I think it's K by decision here.
I think so.
Next one, we got a rematch. We got Renato Canuto versus Tommy Langaker. These guys met in one championship 3 months ago, something like that, when they were both in ADCC, and they're both in CJI. Another guy that's gonna use the cage is the pit wall is Renato. Or Renato Canuto. I love Tommy Langaker's game. I think Langaker is potentially a little bit more technical than Canuto, but I think Canuto is very much more willing to jump more stuff. We've seen Langaker historic, if you look back in the last 10 years, historically Langaker's biggest wins have been punching up with big subs versus top level competition. Go back and watch this match with Urberth Santos. But I think Canuto is Langaker is the beginning of that. Canuto is the modern kind of younger guy that is that is his game. And I think that he will understand what Langaker wants to do, because Langaker is a very known quantity. We know what Langaker likes to do. We know how he does it. You can plan to deal with Langaker. He's one of the best technicians in the world, but you can plan to deal with him. Canuto is a guy that you can kind of plan to deal with. Mm-hmm. I think he is not necessarily as consistent as Tommy Langaker, but when he has big moments, they are enormous. And he frequently has bigger moments. And I think in this tournament, with this being a rematch, he will be able to have more moments against Langaker because he's seen what he's brought to the table. He will know the distance a little better. He'll be more comfortable with dealing with Langaker's guard, dealing with Langaker's wrestling, dealing with what Langaker brings to the table. And that really alone is my pick, is why I kind of think Canuto is going to take this. I think he's going to use the cage wall or the pit wall, which is going to work well for the judges. They want to see that. It's a guy early in the tournament jumping off the pit wall, going for arm bars. Langaker is going to be a little more measured. It's not going to quite play as well. And it's a rematch, and Canuto will know how to adjust his high-flying style versus Langaker. I think we're going to see him jump for more stuff in this matchup.
I agree with you. I think Hanato is just a little bit more unpredictable than Tommy. Yeah. Last couple of matches especially. I mean, the flash submissions. He's unpredictably good. Gi and no gi. I mean, Langaker's great no gi and gi as well. I think, like you were saying, I think it plays more towards Hanato's game. I think it's more of a flash game. Tommy's going to be more of a grindy kind of even though he's well-rounded, both of them are really well-rounded. I think Tommy's going to stay to his game, slow, grindy game. One guy who is willing to let his stuff pop. He's just we've seen it before, and I think Hanato's one of those guys that he's going to catch Tommy in a submission. Whether he finishes it or not, we don't know. But I think
that's the other thing is
with $1 million on the line,
not can you finish Tommy Langaker?
I think with $1 million on the line, I think you're going to see these guys go for broke. It may not give him time to tap a snap, but I think with Tommy, he'll let it snap and he will keep going. So that's the toughness he brings to the table. He's measured toughness.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I think it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, if Renato grabs an armbar, it breaks. Tommy's okay, and
exactly.
It's what do you do with a guy like that? He's still in front of you. It broke. Yeah, I got out though because it broke.
Correct.
Like Jacare and Hodger back in the day. It's it broke. Cool.
Just
belt.
tucking his belt.
You're what do I do with this guy now?
But it's going to be interesting though to see if it goes multiple rounds or not, which I think it will. I don't think it's going to be a 1 round thing.
Yeah, this is one I don't really see going. I think a lot of these first rounds are going to be either really quick or all 3 rounds. I feel like this is going to be a longer day, the first day here for CGI. I'm going to go Hanato. I think you're going to go Hanato too.
Yeah, Hanato.
All right, next one we got Majid Hage versus Owen Flanagan. Machine Hage got permission to compete in a t-shirt and his board shorts.
That's awesome.
And I love it. That being said, I think Owen O'Flanagan rips his leg off.
You think?
Dude, Owen, go back and watch Wagner Hosher versus Owen O'Flanagan at ADCC 2022. Dude is real good. Dude's really, really good. And we've seen him on a bunch of the European cards, on the super fights. He's looked really, really good. Majid has been grappling a bunch, but we've seen him way less active on competition. He seems almost like he's very, very good, but he's not putting as much of his time into jiu-jitsu as he had been before. He's doing a lot of surfing. He's doing a lot of bike. He's doing other stuff and engaged. Owen, it seems like, is only doing prep for this, for ADCC, for trials. And I think that kind of difference of like preparation is going to be a big factor in this matchup. I just think that Owen is a really, really uniquely good leg locker. And I think that he will have planned for how Majid enters the guard. He's going to pull, he's going to enter, he's going to go into the legs, and he's going to put Majid on the defensive early. And we're going to see him sub Majid. That's really how I think. I think that Majid has been a little bit inconsistent in trials recently, in Brazilian trials, in American trials. Like, he's just not had the level of consistency I would hope for, like going into this kind of tournament. And Owen kind of has. He's been consistent. He's winning. He's the champion. He's the trials champion. Gets the invite over to CJI. Phenomenal European leg locker. I just think that Majid will not have the right game plan going in, because that's one thing we've kind of seen Majid struggle with occasionally is the game planning. Like, either his game that he runs, gorilla hands, like it works, or it doesn't work. And when it doesn't work, you get the matches like JT Torres, where JT Torres just kind of like grinds him out the entire time on who's number one. And it was like, yeah, that was a one-sided match. And Majid can have those kind of matches. Owen's been in it, man. What's your take? What's your take on this one?
I think everything you said was spot on. I can't retort anything I think you said it all, man.
Yeah. I mean, let's move on then.
Yeah, let's move on. Yeah.
Let's talk about this one. This is a weird one. This is also another weird one. Andrew Tackett, Nicky Ryan.
Oh my goodness gracious. Goodness.
So I've had like two people send me hot takes on this. They're like, I think he beats him in the first round. Who? I don't know. I've had people go, yeah, Nick Ryan's definitely going to take that. I've had guys go, oh yeah, Andrew Tackett definitely takes that. This, for me, will entirely depend on which Nicky Ryan shows up.
Agreed.
But that's sort
Agreed.
of
and that's the $1 million question.
Literally the $1 million question. You're so excited this is for $1 million. I love it.
Man, that's a lot of money, bro.
It is a lot of money. Andrew Tackett, both gyms, B Team and Brazilian Fight Factory, built a pit wall. They've both been training on it. Nicky Ryan seems to be in the best shape he's ever been in, because finally B Team has a coach. And that's one thing they talked about, like, I think a year ago on the Simple Man podcast, they were talking about one of the coaching structure of B Team at the time was very free form, and like athletes kind of managed themselves and did it themselves. And they were talking about, that works for something. Nicky Rod was like, it works great for like guys like me, and like certain guys it works amazing for. And he goes, other guys like Nicky Ryan kind of potentially need a coach. They need a guy that's going to push them, make them put in the work, make them eat right. Like, they kind of need that. And like, it all depends on your athlete. Like, certain athletes don't need that. Certain athletes do need that. And I've worked with guys that like super self-starters can do it alone and like just need kind of the guidance, and other guys where it's like, no man, you have to be here at 7 because this is what we're doing. You have to put it all depends on the athlete. Like, you can get the same results with both guys.
Sure.
Nicky Ryan is a guy that now that he has Dima coaching him, kind of we're back to Danaher in that same way where it's like, yeah, someone else is managing his training. Mm-hmm. He's going to be really good. Andrew Tackett was the dark horse to take 77 for ADCC. He was supposed to win East Coast trials. He got sick or injured back, couldn't do it. Then comes back, wins West Coast trials with his brother at 77 kilograms. And then him and his brother, the biggest kind of X factor here for me is him and his brother were the first two names to leave ADCC and enter CJI. that is a level of confidence that is, and they were talking about the million. They were like, look, it's a huge amount of money. It changed my life, changed my family. I think I can win the whole thing.
For sure.
Then we got the rest of the names, and it was like, okay, that's a wild tournament. Him going against Nicky Ryan in the first round, I think this will be the definitive match to show where Nicky Ryan is at and where he can get to. I think this is very much career-wise a make-or-break match for Nicky Ryan. Of like, Andrew Tackett's a young, up-and-comer, trials winner, kind of what Nicky Ryan was a couple of ADCC cycles ago in 2019. Like, what he was. Mm-hmm. It's like, can you beat the next kind of younger, only a couple years younger, can you beat that generation of guy? Or like, are the injuries and the training and the like all the notorious injuries that Nicky Ryan has had, is that all kind of caught up to him and are not going to allow him to beat that level? I think this is a weird benchmarking match in an odd kind of way I didn't expect going into this tournament.
Man, this is going to be, in my opinion, could be the match of the tournament. I mean,
yeah,
you got two. I mean, both
so think
these,
about talk through like what you like about Tackett's game for why you think it could be match. Like why do you think this could match the tournament?
I think Tackett is so just versatile. He's so well rounded. He's so unpredictable. He's a dog. He beat Big Dan, and who's number one, and he turns it around and he goes.
The size is going to matter,
But I'm saying he's like. He's shown he can wrestle the big guy. He go against the big guys, the small guys, people his size. Mm-hmm. He's game for everything.
We got to see that Mika match still.
Yes,
that Mika match is the one that we got away. Like
he was hurt. He pulled up hurt. I think it was the PJ Barch.
PJ Barch stepped in because he beat PJ Barch like in a way that we had never seen PJ Barch beaten before.
Correct.
And then he hurt his back, pulled out of the tournament, and then we've now seen Mika Galval go against Jay Rodriguez, but we never saw that Andrew Tackett match, and we've all been kind of clamoring for it since he's been injured.
But we know he can go there. At least we suspect he can compete against the best of the best.
That's
you know what I mean? And then with Nicky Ryan, I mean, he subbed JT Torres.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
He
first time in what, like 13 years or something? It wasn't Dean Lister said, which is 17 years, but it was first time in like 13 years.
Wasn't the first time as a black belt he's been submitted?
I think it was the first time.
That's
It's like,
sick. That's sick.
Which is crazy. And then you go back and watch the breakdown they did on B Team on that sub. You're like, oh, that was like a wild. Like I remember breaking down on the show, and like Miranda on the pre-show had showed me. She's like, "Look where his hand is," and I was like the technique that Nicky Ryan had in that was like world. Like you subbed a 2-time ADCC champion,
correct?
First guy black belt, like that. That is crazy.
Yeah.
Nicky Ryan can do that.
Exactly.
Do we think Andrew Tackett could do that? Like,
well,
I don't know.
Either one can. I mean, look at how Nicky Ryan marched through East Coast trials. He lost in the finals
to Elijah Dorsey, but that was a weird match. He didn't eat all day or something. That was such a weird match.
But just how he marched up and got to that point, he was just subbing everyone. It's like, oh my goodness.
And it was like easily.
Yes.
He was like subbing everyone kind of easily. And you're watching guys have in the quarterfinals have like crazy hard matches, and then next round they had Nicky Ryan. It was like sub, and you're like.
So
everyone else is trying super hard, and you don't seem to be trying that hard. Your camp was kind of meh. Now this is a full camp, hopefully injury-free. Nicky Ryan, God damn it.
Yes.
I'm kind of swinging back to Nicky Ryan on this now.
I mean, it can go either way. I think Nicky Ryan's been around a little longer than Andrew Tackett, a little bit more seasoned.
Yeah, he's been ADCC since he was 15.
You know, he is pretty good with his wrestling, but then again, so is Andrew Tackett.
I think Andrew Tackett honestly has the better wrestling.
Okay.
I think I will lean into Tackett. Like he is more explosive. Nicky Ryan is not explosive. He's a good technical wrestler, but Andrew Tackett can blast you off your feet in a different kind of way, I think.
I don't know. It's going to be interesting. We've seen Nicky just be really, really physical with folks, you know. I think with that JT match, you kind of saw that.
Yeah, I'm going Nicky Ryan now. You've swayed me here. I'm thinking about like yeah, man, like 3 words. Subbed JT Torres. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That's a tough one to go against.
Until you give me a reason, not and with a full camp. I think there are so many things that I think have lined up in Nicky Ryan's life and camp to make this his best performance ever. Andrew Tackett's on the trajectory, But like again, watching either of these guys beat each other wouldn't surprise me. But
Well,
I do think we're gonna go. I do think this is gonna be Nicky Ryan.
I'm going to swing towards Andrew Tackett on that
Okay.
one, just by the slimmest of margins. I think it will go 3 rounds. I think it may be a decision type deal. I don't think it's going to be.
I think Nicky
quick
Ryan
match.
subs Andrew Tackett.
Okay.
I think he leg locks him.
Just for the sake of seeing an exciting match.
Okay.
Hope so. But I really think it's going to be potentially the barn burner match of the tournament. It's going to be explosive.
So we've run through. We're running a little long in this first bracket, but again, this is. I'm having a great time. So we have different guys moving on, and about half of these. Who do you think ends up in the finals?
Oh goodness. Oh well. For the semifinals on one side, I think you're going to have Cade versus Andrew Tackett. With that, I think that Cade's going to edge out Andrew Tackett.
I think the winner, whoever wins, I think again, Cade beats either Hanato or Tommy Lanker. And then I think whoever wins the Andrew Tackett and Nicky Ryan match beats the winner of Mijit Hayde and Owen O'Flanagan.
I agree with
So I think whoever we end up in those two blocks, we're going to end up with Cade or Tackett or Ryan on that side. Mm-hmm. I kind of think Cade beats both of them. Both of those are phenomenal. I mean, I would love to see Cade versus Andrew or Nicky Ryan. Like those are super fun matches. But I kind of think that, Cade can beat either of those guys. Again, I think Andrew Tackett and Nicky Ryan can beat Cade as well. But I think the level of physicality that Cade brings, Andrew Tackett can contend with. Nicky Ryan, I think, will have a more technical answer to what Cade is bringing. I think so. Mm-hmm. Do you remember if ADCC Trials 2019, which Rotolo did Nicky Ryan beat? Was it Ty or was it Cade? Because I can never remember and I always get it wrong. Do you remember offhand?
No, I didn't.
So one of them will be a rematch. So potentially we're going to see a rematch of that. But again, that was 5 years ago, where they were all they were all children at that point. Yep. Maybe Nicky Ryan was like 18 or something like that, but
if that.
No, he might have been. No, I think because Ty was 15 at the time. Because I interviewed Ty after at ADCC and he was 16. I didn't 15. Regardless, I kind of think we get a brother final rematch like their brown belt worlds in 2018. I think we get Ty and Cade in the finals. Who do you think goes through on the right side of the bracket?
On the right side,
yeah. Putting you on the spot here.
Yeah, I think on the other side, I think Simi's going. I have Ty and Joseph Chin.
Okay. You think it goes back to rematch for what we just saw in one championship?
Yes, sir.
Who do you think takes that in the rematch? Because I think that was really, really close for Chen. I almost want to lean Chen in a rematch with that.
I think it's going to be a repeat.
You think Ty takes it?
I think Ty takes it. It's going to be. Once again, it kind of depends on how many rounds each match is for each one of these gentlemen.
Yeah.
And how deep they go into deep waters. But I think it happens. So it wasn't a long time ago. It happened. I don't know how much each guy's game is going to change by then. But I think it was definitely some lessons learned by each one. But I'm going to give it to Ty. But it wouldn't surprise me if Joseph Chin
I think
won either.
the top player is the big fact. If it goes to the decision again, which it probably will with both these guys,
okay.
I think Ty being the top player, you're right, in this rule set lends itself more to winning a decision there. I think. So do you think we get Cade and Ty as well in the finals here?
I think so.
That would be wild.
I think so.
Who do you think takes that?
And I think that's why they're in it, right?
Yeah,
in the same bracket.
Who do you think takes that?
Man,
put you on the spot here.
Oh, to be honest with you, I think it's going to be Cade.
You think Cade beats his brother? Do you think they swap between what happened at Worlds in 2018?
Think so. I think I've just been looking at what's been going on lately with their matches. I think they're both very, very good. They're both trending up, but I think Cade is just. I think Cade has been
kind of moving through his opposition in a way that we haven't seen Ty do in a little bit. He seems to just be.
I mean, since ADCC 2022. I mean,
he's just been on the better run.
He's been on a tear. Taking nothing away from Ty.
No, but we're looking at Cade has since 2022 has been more successful than his brother, or not more successful. They've been equally successful, both as champions, but with that ADCC title, which Ty doesn't have. He has a medal in absolute, which Cade doesn't have, but Cade is the champion at 77. Right. The one title, was the first one holder there. He got it before his brother, and then they built a division around his brother as well. But yeah, I kind of go. And now Cade went over to MMA first. I kind of think this switches. We get Cade. All right.
I think this is his tournament to lose. I think it's his. $1
million though. That's wildly going to change his life.
$1 million. All
right. Anything else on under 80 before we move to over 80?
No. That's
okay.
it.
Boom. Let's move into the over 80 kilogram division. Let's talk about the first round matchup. We have Nick Rodriguez and Max Jimenez. For some reason, I talked to Simon. I thought that these guys had gone against each other before. They have not. In my head.
Wow.
You thought they did too?
I thought they did too.
Yeah, no. They're always like close, but they've not gone against each other. Max is a local guy to us. I like Max a lot. Run into him at tournaments, talk to him all the time at tournaments. I think Nick Rodriguez takes this. I just think that he has I just think the style and the top pressure that Rodriguez brings, Jimenez will play a lot of guard. I think the wrestling and the top pressure of Rodriguez and the body lock passing are going to win this for him. I think stylistically it's a rough match for Max. We know Max has been focusing on MMA. We've watched, you and I both watched him fight a couple of times on Shogun.
Yes.
Which is the local promotion in Maryland. I just want to lean. I just lean Rodriguez here. Because I think if you are not Victor Hugo, nobody with any consistency can beat Nick Rodriguez.
Agreed.
And I think that's sort of all it is. Like that, the heavy body lock pressure. Like he's eventually going to get your guard down. He's eventually going to pass you.
Yes. And
I think with Max Jimenez, he does that. Does he get the back and choke? I don't know. But I could potentially see it. I could see him controlling Jimenez from the top, though. And I could see him taking a pretty definitive victory on points if it does go that way.
I think this goes to Nicky Ryan's. One, he's been here in this position like this more often. UFC, the invitationals, what have you. He's been on the big stage. Not to say, Max hasn't.
Done more IBJJ. He's been more on the IBJJF circuit for longer.
Yes.
But we've seen him in ADCC before. But we've seen Rodriguez, like you said, he's in this super fight style, high level tournament. He is more familiar in that stage.
Correct.
And he's also not doing MMA. He did just have a kid.
Okay.
A week ago or 2 weeks ago, though. So that is my only concern is that Nick Rodriguez just had a child. And how much does that affect your ability to prepare? But I think he probably has a good network of people around him that are like, yeah, you're going to go fight for $1 million. We'll help you take care. But it's also your first couple weeks of your kid's life. Like that, you get a sleep-deprived Nick Rodriguez because he has a newborn at the house. Like that, that does put a big X factor into this for me. But I do think that the way I've heard Rodriguez talk about his preparation for these tournaments is pretty insane. He talks about on the day of the tournament, I don't make any decisions. I have someone drive me. I know what I'm going to eat in the morning. He goes, because I think you have a finite number of decisions you can make during a day, and I want to save my best ones for when I am at the tournament, when I am competing.
That's pretty cool.
It's where he turns his brain off. The whole day of the tournament, he just turns his brain off, and then he just goes through the motions, and then he goes and competes and starts. It's a wild way to think about decision making as and brain power as an expendable quantity. And I've heard other athletes talk about this, but very few jiu-jitsu guys talk about it. And I was like, oh, that's why he's so successful. That's why he's so crazy good at this stuff. I think he's a different kind of dude. I think that body lock passing that he has, I think the wrestling that he has, I think will be able to beat Max Jimenez. And
I think also, agree. And I think his time with B Team and being just doing jiu-jitsu every day, and with Max splitting time, whatever his split is with MMA, it makes me wonder how many hours or whatever he's.
That's always the big question when guys make the switch over to MMA of how much does that take away from jiu-jitsu? Because we see it frequently. It's guys that make the switch suddenly, it's a year, it's 3 years, but at some point can't keep up with the highest level jiu-jitsu guys. The sports are now developed enough where you can't do both.
and it's growing so fast every day.
Yeah.
Something's new is happening. So
This will be relevant when we talk about Mackenzie Dern versus Ffionn Davies here in a minute. Next, we got Owen Livesey versus Muhammad Ali. We have not seen a lot from Muhammad Ali. He's been trying to get fights for forever. He finally got a couple of fights in MMA, but again, another guy that's been splitting time between MMA. He's got a gym here in Virginia, right near to us. Owen Livesey is a 2013 Commonwealth Games gold medalist in judo, Olympic team member, I think, world team member for, I'm blanking on the country he was part of there. We don't know what Muhammad Ali looks like right now in grappling.
correct. It's been on a while.
He's been going on world champion. Like Owen Livesey is not. On paper, this should be Muhammad Ali. In reality, it might not be because we just don't know where Ali is at. I think Ali is a human tank of a man, and Owen is, I think, going to be one of the smaller guys in plus 80.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Owen is 220. Like, I don't think he's that big. I think Muhammad Ali is every bit of 240.
At least.
Yeah, he fights at heavyweight
Yes.
in MMA. Like, we've seen him go back and watch his match with Nick Rodriguez in ADCC 2019. That was the first match of that tournament. That match was there. I was mat side here covering it for me. I was like, this is insane that they did this first round to all of us. It's like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, dessert first, right?
Yeah, it was good. I flipped back and forth on this matchup. You know, since we got the bracket together, I kind of want to go Muhammad Ali here, just because we have seen Owen sometimes struggle in jiu-jitsu. In catch wrestling, not so much, but in jiu-jitsu with guys that can impose and put him down and be able to hold him down. Like, he has a very explosive front runner game if he can get to you. Mm-hmm. But sometimes you can slow him down. I think in this bracket, I think he's going to be a little undersized for this bracket. Muhammad Ali, if he comes in with the preparation that he should for $1 million on the line, 10,000 to 1 to show, Muhammad Ali should be able to take this. But we haven't seen a lot from Muhammad Ali. He was supposed to do the Virginia Open or the DC Open, didn't show. Elder Cruz didn't show, and so we just don't know. What are your thoughts, Corey?
I thought about this, and I'm going to give it to Owen.
Owen,
The reason why, just the way he went toe to toe with Nicky Rod, in their last match together
at Quintet, or was it Polaris Squads? What was it on?
Goodness, I can't remember which promotion it was.
I think it was B Team Quintet. Because
you could be right. Yes,
it was Team Polaris.
Yes, correct. It was correct.
And then,
Quintet. Yes,
yeah.
Quintet. I think he went toe to toe with him, and with his judo background, his sweeps, he kept putting Nicky Rod on his butt.
And he foot swept him.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So I think that's going to add a different complexion to this. So
he
I
can
think
deal with the size.
Owen's a smaller guy, but I think he can deal with the size of Muhammad Ali as good as Ali is.
Oh, that's funny. If Rodriguez goes through on this bracket, the next match will be a rematch.
Yes.
Because he's went against Owen. He's went against Muhammad before. That's really interesting. I didn't really put that together until you just said that.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting match, but I give it to the advantage to Owen. But then again, it depends. We haven't seen much of Muhammad Ali lately, so it's like we're kind of guessing here, as we are with all of them. But
I kind of think
we haven't seen a lot.
I do kind of think whoever wins this, Nick Rodriguez does beat again though. It's almost a moot point to the semifinals. Yeah. All right, moving on to the next one. We got Adam Bradley versus Kyle Bame. I go Kyle Bame. He is insanely hard to deal with. He's insanely strong. He's a former professional rock climber. We've seen him versus Nick Rodriguez. We've seen him, in ADCC. He got guillotined by Craig. Adam Bradley did really, really well at trials. He moved from Athos to B team. Has been in beef with Gordon for like 5 years. No one really understands why. But I just think that Kyle Bame, being as an aggressive leg locker as he is going to be able to get Adam Bradley's feet. Adam Bradley is, again, not a guy that's going to be smaller in the 80 kilogram division, in the plus 80. Like, he's not, I forget what he did trials at and what he got he was in ADCC for like a day, and then he moved over to CJI, but Bame is easily 240. He is just an insanely strong athlete, and he's mostly a leg locker. He's a good leg locker, and he's a dangerous leg locker, and he breaks guys' feet. I just think that he will be able to get a hold of Adam Bradley. Like, go back and watch Big Dan at West Coast Trials versus Kyle Bame. Super, super close match. Big Dan makes a tactical error in that match to lose it, but neck and neck physically with Kyle Bame, and Big Dan is 300 plus pounds.
Impressive.
Adam Bradley, I think, technically very, very dominant, very, very great. I think he's a black belt on Andre Galvao. And he's moved over to B team. But I just think that to deal with Bame well, you kind of need enough physical size to be able to kind of stall him and prevent him from, he's going to sit, he's going to go to butterfly guard, he's going to try to invert under and get your feet and get your legs, and he can do it to almost everyone unless you have some kind of physical attributes to be able to stop him. And I think Bradley's not quite big enough to be able to stop that entry.
I agree with you with Bradley being undersized. If Bame gets to his game first, it's going to be tough for anybody to stop.
Yeah, I just don't know.
As good as Adam Bradley is.
Yeah, I just don't know. We've seen Adam Bradley on Who's Next. He's got a great choke game, but I just don't know. Either would have to get Kyle Bame's back, and in this rule set, I don't know how he would be able to get Bame's back effectively. Like, to force Bame into a scramble here in the pit wall where it's so much easier to hide your back because the pit's there is my sort of thought. So I'm going to go Bame here. I don't have much more other than that, but
I'll go Bame as well.
Yeah. Next one we got, we keep showing it. So we have Pat Downey versus Luke Rockhold. Pat Downey was actually in our gym Friday as like a last training session before he was heading out to Vegas.
Wow, I missed that one.
Yeah, it was neat to have him in the room. I wasn't there either because I had to work, but I saw the picture. I was like, oh, look at that. Pat Downey's coming in. That's going to be a nightmare for everyone. He's got Luke Rockhold first round, so it was nice. We got some guys that were very good guys in our room that have very similar builds to Rockhold. That being said, it is fucking Luke Rockhold. And Luke Rockhold, if you don't know, very, very good grappler. IBJJF Nogi World Champion 2007, 2008. It blue belt and purple belt.
Okay.
Very, very good grappler. Never forget the inverted triangle he hit on Tim Boach or the one-arm guillotine he hit on Michael Bisping.
Wow.
Phenomenal grappler. He's older.
Yeah.
He's gotten much slower. He's had a tougher end of his career here in MMA. Downey is in phenomenal shape.
Up and coming.
Very good. Up and coming. Younger. More heavy into wrestling. Pat Downey's a world team member for the U.S. Wrestling. Has had some issues here and there with his training. But this is one that Downey can absolutely win. But I think Luke Rockhold is a very good wrestler. He was AKA for years with Cain Velasquez and DC and Khabib. But I think Pat Downey's a better wrestler. How much that will matter in a pit format that Luke Rockhold is very familiar with, like the MMA style, like with the walls, a little bit different angle. But I think Luke Rockhold also has a great game off his back, and he's super unorthodox. But as Rockhold has gotten older, I'm curious if he's going to be able to do that. And he's not really a heavy leg locker. He's more of like an old school traditionalist, like top player MMA style grappler. None of the AKA guys are leg lockers. They're all top guys. Versus, like, I think that is where your best avenue to beat Pat Downey is into the legs. I don't think Rockhold's going to do that. My question is just like, how old is Rockhold? That is really my question here. We've seen him on, was it Polaris last versus Nick Rodriguez?
I was about to bring that up. Yes, that was probably 3-4 years ago.
It was post-COVID, I think. I think it was like 2 years ago, wasn't it?
I think Nicky Ryan was still a blue belt at the time.
No. He got purple after ADCC 2019. Yeah.
Well, he didn't fight him not too long after that. He didn't fight. Maybe 2020? I think it was during COVID when he fought him, or beginning of COVID.
21, I think.
Okay, well, a couple of years.
It was a
couple of years.
Oh, wow, yeah.
So I
that is data I should have had. I should have been able to remember that.
But I think with that being said, I think at the time Nicky Ryan was still a little bit more wrestling than BJJ at the time, and that
a little more raw. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think of the way that Luke beat him that match. It was a good match, but I think with
Luke beat him really?
I think so. I think Luke beat Nicky that match.
Not a Polaris, I don't think.
I could be wrong. I probably am.
They interviewed him both. I remember that because it was the main event.
I thought he beat him.
This is not like super important information
Okay.
that we should. Both guys on the same side of the tournament, but
I know it was a very, very competitive fight.
So do you think you think Luke Rockhold can beat Pat Downey? Or do you think Downey, being the younger guy, being like the more physical, younger wrestler, can beat Luke Rockhold?
Yes, yes, and yes. Yes,
Okay.
and yes. I think it can go either way. You got the younger wrestler versus the older MMA specialist that has wrestling in his pedigree, grappling in his pedigree. Yes, I don't know, man.
I think this goes decision, I think it goes
Luke.
Yeah, I was gonna lean towards Luke. I think Downey. I think Downey can get Luke down. I think he can wrestle Luke down, and I think he can probably keep Luke controlled on the ground.
I'm not sure about that with Rockhold's MMA experience. It's just a different kind of gear.
Oh, that's a good point.
They don't like to be held down.
They do not like to be held down.
They can get up pretty quickly. So,
I go Luke. I go Luke here now.
And the question is how much mat time has Downey had?
I mean, in jiu-jitsu or in wrestling, like a lifetime.
Jiu-jitsu.
But in jiu-jitsu, yeah, like he's very much. He just came back to try to qualify for the Olympics. Looked okay. Got tired. Didn't have the gas tank for it. That being said, I kind of want to go Luke here. I think Luke will have. I think if this goes late, we've seen Pat Downey get tired. I do not think Rockhold will get tired in the same way. I think he will get a little more tired than we expect him to get, but I just don't think he'll get tired in the same way. Yeah, I go Rockhold here, but this is a real toss-up one because of where both guys are at in their career.
And it also depends on how long the fight goes. Is it going to be first round, second round, third round?
If it goes long, I favor Rockhold more and more.
Yeah.
So next side of the bracket, we have Victor Hugo versus Lucas Kennard. Lucas Kennard was ADCC trials winner for the Australian and Oceanic trials. Got pulled over with Mason Fowler dropping out. That being said, Victor Hugo is your number one seed in this tournament. I think Lucas Kennard is your one of your lower four seeds in this tournament. This is Victor Hugo. Nick Rodriguez can't beat Victor Hugo. Very few guys can beat Victor Hugo.
Very few guys can and have. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, I just think this is Victor Hugo, his guard. I think
probably one of the best guards in jiu-jitsu.
Especially in the heavier weights. Yeah, absolutely. I think Victor Hugo, I don't think has the best guard, no-gi guard, aside from like maybe Gordon, Victor Hugo, and end of list for guys like big guys that play a really, really dynamic, great guard game. That list
very
is
short list.
I mean, in no-gi you have the Muniz brothers. In gi you have like the Muniz brothers. You got Margallo. You have other guys that can like entangle with the lapels, but Hugo can play it both. I think Victor Hugo subs Kennard. I think he subs him probably with rear naked choke. Probably gets his back and chokes him. Again, I wish I knew more about Kennard's game. I'm not super familiar with his game, but
same here.
It's Victor. It's one of those like it's your number one seed versus anyone else. I even favor Victor Hugo over Nick Rodriguez in this bracket, which is crazy. But again, he's beat him 3 times. So next one, we have Ignacio Santos versus Pedro Alex. Two guys. Like I'm gonna full disclosure here. I am not super familiar with either one of these guys' games. Brazilian trials winners. Pedro Alex, I'm a little more familiar with his game than Ignacio Santos, but I'm honestly not going to make a pick here because I think it would be kind of just throwing confetti into the wind with like my knowledge of either guy's game. Cory, do you have any more knowledge of either of these guys' game, or are you in the same boat as me?
I think from what I understand, both these guys are good passers.
Okay.
Good guard passers. And I think Ignacio beat Pedro in no-gi pants in 23.
Okay.
So they've gone head to head.
Yeah, I remember Ignacio Santos in his trials run for Brazilian trials. Bigger guy, played a really heavy, like really forward pressure game. But I remember the match being very inactive aside from the forward pressure. Okay. And it didn't give me a lot. That's why I kind of don't know a lot about his game because It didn't give us a lot to like grasp onto from a technical perspective, and it was like one of matches like, cool, if that's how he plays. I didn't really pull further into his game to look more deeply into it.
Gotcha.
Again, you guys are on the same side as Victor Hugo in the bracket. That's going to be a rough run-up.
That's a tough one. But I would give that to Santos, though.
He's won it before. He beat Pedro Alex before. I think that's the same. I'm more familiar with his game than I am with Pedro Alex's game.
Okay.
I think Pedro Alex maybe is a little more dynamic, but I think Santos plays a heavier pressure game on top, and that's going to do him better in this rule set. Last corner of the side of the bracket, we have Greg. Cory, can you pronounce his last name or no?
No, sir.
The human fridge wrestler that everyone's super amped from Penn State to come into. Kerfliate. Yeah.
How about Greg K?
Greg K.
Okay.
Greg K. I watched a couple of his matches because I was like, let me understand his game a little more. Really, really fast heavyweight.
Okay.
Like 285 heavyweight. Yeah. Okay. And he's fast. And he can double leg. That being said, he's going against Felipe Andrew, who has one of the best ankle locks in the heavyweight divisions. Greg K, having legs, I think, is a really big disadvantage versus Felipe Andrew if your main go-to is wrestling. Given that Greg K has legs and he's going against Felipe Andrew and he's a background in wrestling, I think Felipe Andrew's going to ankle lock him. Just because Felipe Andrew can ankle lock some of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world, Greg is not one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the world. One of the best wrestlers.
Correct.
But, man, it's different. It's not the
different.
same. This is what I talked about earlier. We've seen this versus like Jason Nolf. We've seen this time and time and time again. A astonishing wrestler coming into a new sport against the best guys in that sport, they don't win. Mm-hmm. They get subbed. That's how this works.
Yeah.
I see it in trials every time. This big wrestler guy comes in, and then a jiu-jitsu guy comes in and goes, "You have legs?" And they go, "I do have legs." And it's like, cool. I'm gonna attach my body to them and then heel hook you,
right?
Because you're dealing with feet and shoes, and you're not usually allowed to do this.
Yep.
Greg is a physical specimen, but I do think that he has legs because I've checked, and I do think that is going to be the big downfall with him versus Felipe Andrew. I think if he can, I don't think that there's a game plan that he could put into here where he's going to be able to pressure Felipe Andrew from the top long enough that and be able to completely control Felipe Andrew enough to avoid Felipe Andrew being able to hit something. Again, Felipe Andrew has one of the best like trap triangles in the sport. Go back and watch his triangle on Keenan Cornelius 2020 or Lucas Hulk Barbosa at Third Coast Grappling. Like phenomenally fast triangle. Even if you get him down, like cool, he's on his back. He's phenomenal off his back. Good luck. Any other kind of points to counter any of that?
No, I think you pretty much laid it out. I mean, Greg K is going to take him down, potentially. And I think from playing off his back, Felipe Andrew was very, very comfortable. You got the triangle. You got a straight ankle.
Yeah.
They call it Botinho.
Botinho ankle lock.
Yeah, man. I think that's the way it goes. Now the question was, it's going to be a first, second, or third round sub. So I think it's going maybe second round. I think it may take Felipe Andrew maybe a round to get used to kind of what's going on with him to kind of. Because if he's that good of a wrestler and that kind of physically imposing, I think it may take him a minute to kind of settle in.
I think first round.
You think first round?
I think the minute it hits the mat, if Andrew's going to go, oh, cool, we're doing jiu-jitsu now. Boom, sub. Okay. And then Greg is just not going to have the depth of experience versus other guys here, like good finishers. Felipe Andrew, I think, is one of the best finishers in this bracket. And I think that's going to be the decide. That's like... You know, he goes against a guy like Nick Rodriguez is a great rear naked choke specialist. He has some other good things to his game too. He's finished heel hooks. He has other things. He's got a good toe hold game now. But you don't think about him as like a really dynamic finisher. He's a power finisher. He's got good finishing mechanic when he gets there. But Felipe Andrew is a flash submission finisher. In a way that I think if you're running up against a guy that is not super familiar, you're going to have those flash taps. So he's going to have his foot in the wrong place. He's going to have his arm in the wrong place. He's going to have his neck in the wrong place. And Felipe Andrew's going to flash sub, and it's going to be quick.
I agree with you.
Moving on, let's talk about Gabriel Hosha versus William Tackett. Another big guy versus a smaller guy. William Tackett's not that small. He won 88 kilograms, under 88 kilograms at ADCC West Coast Trials for 2024. Him and his brother were the first people to make the jump over to CJI for the $1 million bracket. Gabriel Hosha is a super savvy veteran. He's on the older side now. On the older side, he's like mid-30s now. William Tackett is 24, I think, something like that. I think I interviewed him when he was like 18. And so I think he's 24 or maybe 22 now. Something around there. I kind of think William Tackett might be able to beat João Gabriel Rocha. But João Gabriel Rocha also has a win over Gordon Ryan. Like he's just weird. Not whatever, close match to Gordon Ryan. The Gordon had to blow his knee out to win on ACBJJ back in like 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, William Tackett. It's just a weird matchup for me because João Gabriel is really hard to move around, and he's been here forever. What are your thoughts on this, Cory? I don't have a lot to go on here.
Yeah, I think just basically based on what you just said, João Gabriel's been around a long time. He's a veteran. He's grizzled. He's as good as William Tackett is. I think compared time wise, I think he still just doesn't have the years of the mat time that João Gabriel has. It could go, but I wouldn't be surprised if William Tackett won this. They're both pretty well rounded, but I think William Tackett is undersized. And that might kind of play into the whole thing as well.
If João Gabriel can get on top of him and hold him down and control him, like, will William Tackett be able to scramble out of that and make something happen off of it? Potentially. But João Gabriel has just like smothering. Yeah,
and I think he specializes in, I think the majority of his submissions are from back chokes, right?
I think so, yeah.
I think rear naked chokes, back chokes. So I think I'm going to give the nod to João Gabriel simply based off of the time, just him.
I don't want to pick him, but I do think that this is a weirdly tough stylistic matchup for Tackett because João Gabriel Rocha, Tackett's going to move and be quick. He's a good wrestler. He's got dynamic finishes. He's got good leg locks. I think Gordon Ryan couldn't heel hook João Gabriel Rocha.
Which says something.
Back when Gordon was back in 2018 when he was really the heel hook guy still. I don't think William Tackett, I think the game has changed a lot in 6 years since their matchup, but I don't think that João Gabriel Rocha, not that he's not leg lockable, but he's going to be very aware that William Tackett's best opportunity to leg lock him is going to be, to finish him is going to be a leg lock. And there's also, like you said, Cory, $1 million on the line. I just think that this is a really tough stylistic matchup for William Tackett. Yeah, I think top pressure from João Gabriel Rocha is going to win this. So now we've finished all these quadrants here. Who do you think ends up in the finals, and why is it not Nick Rodriguez and Victor Hugo?
Well,
who do you?
I don't have an answer for you if it's not Nicky and Victor. No, but seriously, I think it's going to be a rematch of Nick Rodriguez and Victor Hugo.
Yeah, which is weird, I don't.
Because
weird. Sorry, keep going.
As far as on Nicky Rod's side of the bracket, I don't really see anyone there. I mean, anyone can win this, but I think the way we've seen with his game and the way things are going, I think it's going to be Nicky Rod from his side.
We've seen him beat Owen Livesey. We've seen him beat Muhammad Ali. Beat Owen Livesey in Polaris. Beat Muhammad Ali at ADCC 2019. We think Nick Rodriguez is way better than he was in both those matchups. He is training with Adam Bradley. He's undersized for Adam Bradley. We've seen Nick Rodriguez beat Kyle Bain. He beat him in EBI. We've seen Pat Downey get beaten by Gordon Ryan. Very, very different guy, but Nick Rodriguez, I think, can control Pat Downey in a way that we've seen Nick Rodriguez pass a lot of guys, get to his back and choke. Luke Rockhold versus Nick Rodriguez. We've seen that match. I think Nick Rodriguez did take that in Polaris.
You're probably right.
But I think it was weirdly
but it's still a
close.
Good match. Yes, close
I
match.
think with the wall, I think that favors Nick Rodriguez even more because now he can get to Luke Rockhold and get him down. So that's why I think Nick Rodriguez beats that entire side of the bracket.
Agreed.
On the other side, Victor Hugo, Lucas Kennard, Victor Hugo, Ignacio Santos, Victor Hugo, Pedro Alex, he beats all of them. Victor Hugo and Greg Klerkett, I think, again, Victor Hugo's guard, he's like, cool, Greg takes him down. Victor Hugo, he's in Victor Hugo's guard. Cool. One of the best guard in this tournament as a big guy. Like, cool. You're not going to be able to pass Victor Hugo. You're not going to be able to you can control him from top position, but he's going to be throwing up submissions. I think he's going to be able to do enough that Greg's not only going to have the positional option, he's not going to have the submission option, which I think in this tournament could win, but I think Victor Hugo will know how to like force an opening on Greg to be able to get his leg, to be able to get his back, to be able to get an arm or something.
Okay. Well, I have Victor and Felipe in the semis. On this side
Felipe
of the bracket.
Andrew?
Felipe Andrew on the side of the bracket.
You think Felipe Andrew beat Gabriel Hosha or William Tackett?
Yes,
Yeah,
I think he's going to beat them, and I think it's going to be an interesting matchup between him and Hugo. Once again, size difference there, but you got the speed. You got
I think they've met before in IBJJF, and I'm blanking on when. Hugo and Felipe Andrew. I think Hugo historically usually takes it in the absolute, but I don't remember the last time they would have met. Do you have any thoughts on like Hugo versus Andrew?
I mean, once again, I think it's going to be one of those things where it depends on how many rounds it goes. You got Felipe Andrew, who's I think they're very both very talented, but I think with the size difference, I think I would give the quickness. I think Felipe is a little quicker than Hugo.
Mm-hmm.
He's a little smaller, probably about 60, 70 pounds smaller, maybe. Is he that much?
I think he's like 20, 25. I think Felipe Andrew's 200 plus.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
I thought Victor was like high too, like 270, 280.
No, Victor's like 250.
250. Okay.
I think, yeah, 250, 260. He does bounce. He goes from 240 to 260, depending on what was going on with Victor Hugo. But I do think he's bigger than Felipe Andrew. But Felipe Andrew, for some reason, we always get this wrong. Him and Wardzinski are in a bunch of matches together.
Yes.
We always have them like 2 weight classes below what they actually are. They're big dudes. They're 200 plus. They're like super. They're like ultra. Not ultra. They're like heavy.
I have Hugo beating Felipe Andrew, but it depends.
Depends.
It depends.
You think potentially we could get Felipe Andrew and Nick Rodriguez here?
Very much so. Very
Yeah.
much so.
So do you think so who do you think takes this entire tournament?
If Nicky Rod and Victor Hugo meet again, it can go either way, even though Hugo's beaten him 3 times in a row.
That last Fight Pass Invitational match really made me concerned for Nick Rodriguez's ability to beat Victor Hugo.
Yes,
now
it
with
did.
Dima and the game planning that Dima has
That
in that
could
B
change.
team room, that could change.
Yes.
But it was almost like he seemed to kind of run out of ideas versus Hugo, and that has sort of been the line for all of their matches. Was like Hugo knows what Rodriguez brings to the table, can stop Rodriguez's best shit, and that's the match.
But I do remember that match. It was kind of, they were going neck and neck until the very end, and Hugo got his points. He didn't even
I think
at the very end.
So
I think he beat him by.
He beat him definitively. I
Yeah.
forget how it was, but yeah, it might have been points or something.
But I think Nicky Rod kept going for the.
It was he kept going for the omoplata. Victor Hugo kept shooting up that, and he had to spin out through it. Yeah, and then there was the footlock battle at the end, and we were kind of wondering like why he hadn't gone to that earlier.
Yeah.
But I might be actually confusing Nick Rodriguez and Mason Fowler, now that I'm thinking about it, because we were talking about Mason Fowler's game and how we were concerned. So I might actually be conflating those two matches. But it is ADCC week and CJI week, so it's like everything is blending together a little bit as we prep for Vegas to go through. So
a whole lot going on. But
I think Victor Hugo takes this whole thing, honestly.
I do too. I give the nod to him. I mean, you beat someone 3 times in a row, that kind of says something. But then again, you never know, man. Like I said, it's $1 million on the line, And I know for sure that Nicky Rod's game planning for a potential rematch with Hugo.
Yeah. All right, so we got 3 more matches to talk about. Which ones do you want to talk about? We got Mackenzie Dern and Ffionn Davies. We got Gabbi Garcia and Craig Jones. And we have there's one more, isn't there?
You said Ffionn Davies already?
Yeah. Just those 2? We were going to have Mikey, but Mikey's match fell through.
Okay, it might just be those 2 then.
Regardless. I think Craig Jones leg locks Gabbi Garcia. I don't think he wants to pay her $1 million.
Yeah.
If the match actually happens, it could be just a giant ruse again, kind of like the last one was.
Hopefully it happens this time. I would like to see that match.
Yeah, I would like to see it too.
I would like to see it.
I think, yeah, that's what kind of should happen. If it's fixed, Who knows? Anything can happen in that match, but I do think Craig Jones is able to get underneath Gabbi Garcia, get to a leg. I think he is one of the best leg lockers that has ever done the sport. Gabbi Garcia is not really prone to leg lockers, but she's also typically larger than the women she is facing, and we have seen her struggle recently with women like Amanda Lev and Amy Campo, ADCC. Like, we've just seen her, she's been a dominant for 15 years.
Yes.
Like, she's at the tail end of her career, no longer the champion of ADCC. She's a 4-time champion, but...
And now she's in MMA as well, right? She's training for
Well,
MMA.
she did 10 years ago, almost.
Yeah.
But she's at the tail end of her career. I think she's kind of done. Craig is also kind of at the tail end of his career, but I do think that, like, I'm going to say it, there's a reason why we typically don't see men versus women in adult matches. Especially when there's a size parity here. Like, Craig is not that much smaller than Garcia.
Plus, Craig is with B Team. He's in that room.
It's Craig's tournament.
Yeah, it's Craig's tournament.
It's his tournament.
practicing.
He designed it.
Yeah.
He's backing it. And that's kind of honestly why it wouldn't surprise me to see him, like, get second place here. just for the joke of it.
Yeah.
Just to piss everyone off.
But we've all seen Craig Jones win some matches. He punches up and you're going, wow.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're looking at
go
him,
back and watch his ADCC 2017 run.
Yes.
Where, like, he became famous. The reason we do this show is because of that run.
Yes.
And we've talked about it before a bunch of times, but yeah. This should be Craig.
Agreed.
Let's talk about the second match. We have Mackenzie Dern versus Ffionn Davies. I talked about it earlier. People that commit their time into MMA typically are unable to stay on the top in both MMA and grappling. Mackenzie Dern has been in the UFC for 6+ years, 7 years now. She's been in the UFC for I think a while now. She's the 2015 ADCC champion for under 65 kilos. Ffionn is the current champion and the current pretty much best woman in the world. Submits everyone. She had a really dominant match versus Brianna Ste-Marie, the silver place medalist for ADCC under 60 kilos. Under 60 kilos, not 65. I have the 3 weight classes messed up they've changed them now. I think that Ffionn submits Mackenzie Dern.
I agree with that.
I just think that Mackenzie's wrestling has not looked great in the UFC. Her submission game has not looked great in the UFC recently. Versus other MMA fighters. Like, she's a phenomenal technical grappler, but she's been out of grappling really for about 10 years. And Fionn's not. Fionn's the best woman in the world.
Both Guy and all around.
All around.
All around.
Like, European absolute champ. Like,
yes.
Just Ffionn is the best right now. And I think she's bigger than Mackenzie Dern. Or on size, like, very similarly sized to Mackenzie Dern. I think it's really just a matter of that. It's like Fionn's still in it, best woman in the world. You're taking on a former champion, former legend, like, coming back into the sport, having not really been competitive in the sport in 10 years.
In a minute, yeah, correct.
And been in the UFC, been committing all of her energy and efforts into that. Had a baby, had some other stuff go on. Fionn's just been grappling.
Just been grappling at a high level.
Yeah,
beating
the highest
everyone.
level, and beating her opposition definitively.
Yes,
Like,
correct.
where it's
correct.
like, oh, this is the next number 2 woman in the world, and you just, like, look. Jasmine Hosha is a phenomenal grappler.
World class.
Ffionn just kind of ran through her, who's number 1. Brianna Ste-Marie, even more recently, phenomenal grappler, silver medalist, ADCC. Ffionn kind of just ran through her and, like, really put a stamp on, like, yep, I'm the number 1 here, definitively. I do not know what Mackenzie Dern could do here to upset that. Like, I think Ffionn has a judo base, is a better wrestler than Dern. I think she is a better finisher than Dern right now. I think she has better positional control than Dern does right now. I don't know if she's a better scrambler than Dern, but given her ADCC 2019 performance and 2022 performance, I would say that she probably is as well. I don't think she's going to let Dern scramble. I think she's going to control and dominate. She's going to move through the guard. She's going to pass, and she's going to submit. Any of your thoughts, Cory?
Nope. No, I agree with you 1,000%.
All right. So that does it for the preview of CJI out here in Vegas in a couple of days. We're hopefully going to do some live shows. We might not, but hopefully will. We're going to talk more about ADCC come to that. We have no idea, full disclosure, how we are going to cover 2 massive tournaments happening simultaneously, remotely in Las Vegas, but we're going to figure it out. So, Corey, what you have on this week? You're not going to Vegas this week.
No, unfortunately, no.
You have like a family and like a life and stuff.
Yeah, both my girls play competitive soccer.
Yeah.
You know, one's in high school, one's in middle school, married, all that good stuff.
Yep. Yeah. I'm married to him. I'm like, we're
soccer
going.
dad. Professional soccer dad. That's me.
Pretty much. I'm not. So I'm going to Vegas, but that'll be good. So yeah, this is the first time having you on the show. It was awesome to have you on the show.
Appreciate it, brother.
What'd you think?
Appreciate it. I love it. This is awesome.
It's been phenomenal to have you here, and looking forward to doing more of these shows in Vegas. I got nothing else. Anything else?
Nope.
As always in the show, we have the Grappling Round with your host, Maine, my co-host,
Cory.
We have the Grappling Round, so Matt, whatever it is, stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google+.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
Let us know.
reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.